Hey everyone, Thomas Joseph here with another kitchen conundrum. Now today we are tackling chicken parm. It's one of my favorite things. Now I'm gonna share with you the tips and tricks you need to get a really crisp coating to your chicken parm with that wonderful ooey gooey melted cheese. It's a really simple recipe and I think you're gonna enjoy it. So let's get started. All right, so let's get started on the chicken parm. Now, in front of me here, I have 2 chicken breasts. Well, today I'm gonna share with you the kind of tip in making cutlets at home. It'll do 2 things. It'll give you some skills that you can impress your friends and family with, and also it'll save you some money at the grocery store as well, because chicken cutlets are a little bit more expensive than if you just buy chicken breasts. Ultimately, what we're trying to do here is we want even pieces that are uniform in size that will cook at the same rate. Otherwise, you're gonna have some pieces of chicken parm that are really dry and others that maybe are much better than that. So take a knife. I like to use a boning knife, and a boning knife is a long, kind of flexible blade, narrow, that's used to butcher meats. What I like to do is take the chicken breast and place it what would be skin side down, so flip it over. And then what you're gonna do is you're going to cut down the center of the chicken breast lengthwise, and you're gonna go down about 1/4 of an inch. So you can slice pretty much all the way down to the narrow end of the chicken breast. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna rotate your knife. So I'm gonna rotate it, not a full 90 degrees, but start off with 45 degrees. Take your thumb and you're gonna start lifting up one of the sides. So I'm gonna just rotate this because I'm right-handed. It's easier for me to kind of work in this direction towards my left. Again, it's slicing on a, I would say like a 45-degree angle, and essentially what we're doing is we're butterflying this and opening it up into a nice even thickness. And then using a meat mallet. If you don't have a meat mallet at home, you could certainly use a rolling pin. You could use a small skillet would be totally fine. Some people even use empty wine bottles, whatever you have on hand. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna gently but firmly pound the cutlets out. And one of the things that I like to tell people is to don't just go straight up and down, pound out and pound to the side, just like that. This is really kind of how you create a wonderful chicken Parmesan. You need to have really flavorful, crisp coating on the outside. I think that's the biggest mistake people make when they're making chicken parm at home, is that the breading or the coating gets really soggy and it's not crisp and crunchy in a way. It's almost just saturated. So I'm gonna show you the standard 3-step process, and you can really use this process for so many things. So to start, I have some shallow dishes here in front of me. I have some flour, all-purpose flour. I have some breadcrumbs, and I'm using panko breadcrumbs today, but you can use fresh breadcrumbs. You could use, store-bought breadcrumbs. Really whatever you like is suitable for this. Panko breadcrumbs, they're Japanese breadcrumbs. They're really flaky and they give an extra crunch. And this is before they're actually brown, so they get even more kind of crisp and crunchy in the end, which is really what I'm looking for when I'm making a chicken parm. And this third dish here, which is going right in the middle, I'm gonna put some eggs. So I have 4 eggs, large eggs. And I really haven't gotten into the details about chicken parm. Chicken parm is one of those Italian-American dishes that isn't necessarily something you're gonna see in Italy. I think eggplant parmesan is more of a, I would say, classic or traditional dish that's made in southern Italy. And probably when it came over to the United States, people decided that they wanted to make a variation of it with either chicken or veal or something like that. And that's how it became so popular here in the United States. And now it's super important whenever you're going through this process of breading anything to season each layer. So I'm going to start with salt. And I know you all might think that this might be too much salt, but the reality is this breading, this coating, is going to be a very thin layer in the end. So season this up really well with salt, pepper, and then just use a fork. You can use your fingers, whatever you want, to mix the seasoning into the flour, the eggs, and then also the breadcrumbs. All right, and last but not least, we have the panko breadcrumbs. Now, one thing that I'm going to add to the breadcrumbs, and this is really a flavor enhancer, and I would encourage you to do this if you like cheese. So I have two different cheeses. I have Parmesan and I have Pecorino, and these are two really pungent aged cheeses. They're salty cheeses that add really great flavor and not a whole lot of extra moisture. So your breadcrumb coating isn't going to be soggy. Now, let me see. So this is Pecorino. I had to figure it out for myself. Pecorino is actually a sheep's milk cheese that's usually a little bit more pungent and forward in flavor than Parm, which I have here. Parmesan is, I would say, maybe slightly nuttier and almost has some caramel tones to it, which are really delicious. It's part of the reason why I think so many Americans love Parmesan, but I always grew up on Pecorino. So it's up to you what you want to use. If you haven't tried one or the other, I would encourage you to give them a try. Now, I think today I'm gonna stick with the Parm just because, you know what, it's in the name of the dish. So I'm gonna just add that into my breadcrumb mixture, toss this together, and now we're ready to start the breading process. All right, so start with the cutlets. The process here is pretty simple. You're gonna take your cutlet, you're gonna dredge it in the flour, then you're gonna go into the egg, and then your cutlet's gonna go right into the breadcrumb mixture. And I really like to coat the top thoroughly with the breadcrumbs, and then I give this a pretty firm press. And really what I'm looking to do here is to adhere all of the breadcrumbs to that egg. And what this does is it's gonna create a wonderful kind of blanket, a crust that will protect the chicken in the cooking process from the oil. So you'll have a nice tender chicken cutlet on the inside, and the outside will have this really nice, crunchy, coated exterior. Here's a tip, I don't know if you guys know this, but you can bread things in advance. So if you're doing a dinner party, you could go all the way up to this stage of coating your cutlets, and you can throw this right into the refrigerator and they'll sit nicely. And the added benefit of time really creates a wonderful coating that will kind of adhere together and stay to itself. It won't fall off in the cooking process. So this really is a great kind of added benefit. So place this gently on your tray, and then this can go right into the refrigerator, 30 minutes to rest while you get everything else set up. Now I'm gonna repeat the process here, and then I'm gonna fill my skillet with oil, and we're gonna fry these cutlets up until they're nice golden brown and delicious. Chicken cutlets, they've been in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes. Now I will tell you, I pulled them out about 10 minutes ago because I didn't want them to be icy cold when they went into the oil. That's kind of a big mistake if you're frying things at home. You wanna make sure that whatever you're frying, whatever you're putting into the oil, that it's not too cold, otherwise it's gonna drop the temperature of your oil, and you're gonna end up with a coating that's pretty soggy as opposed to crisp. Now, I have this pan over a high heat here. I'm gonna turn it down to medium high, and a way that you can gauge whether or not your oil is hot enough in order to fry your cutlets is to take a few of the breadcrumbs that may have fallen off of your cutlet and just sprinkle them into the oil. If they bubble up immediately, which they are doing right now, you know that your oil is hot enough where you can start frying your cutlets. And I'm gonna gently lay these into the pan. Now this is a tip that you should all learn whenever you're cooking at home. If you are cooking in a healthy amount of oil, you wanna make sure that you're not splashing the oil. It's very hot. So put your cutlet in and place it down away from you. So if it does drop, any oil will splash away from you as opposed to towards you. I'm gonna lay this next one in, and you know, this is a 12-inch skillet here, so this will cook 2 cutlets nicely. I wouldn't want to try and squeeze in this third because you're gonna kind of overcrowd the pan, dropping the temperature and ultimately saturating the breadcrumbs with oil as opposed to getting them fried and toasty. So these cutlets are gonna take, I would say, maybe 2 to 3 minutes on each side. So we're gonna brown these up, flip them over, and then we'll be ready to assemble the layering with the sauce and the cheese that will be baked in the oven and make this dish really delicious. All right, so it's been about 2 minutes. You can see there's a nice kind of golden brown edge that's being formed, and that's how you know that you're ready to flip these cutlets. Now you might be saying, 2 minutes on each side, that doesn't seem like enough time, but for the cutlets this size, this thickness, it really does cook up quickly. And we're also going to finish these in the oven, so there's gonna be a little extra cooking time, so don't worry about undercooking your chicken cutlets. You should be more worried about overcooking your cutlets. So I'm gonna flip this guy over. You can see how beautiful this crust is, nice, even golden brown color, and these will cook for another 2 minutes. Now, once they're done, place them on a rimmed baking sheet with a wire rack. Now, I always recommend this so that the bottom layer of your cutlet doesn't get soggy. All right, cutlets are out of the oil. They're nice and crispy. I have a 9x13 baking dish. Any shallow baking dish will do here. So if you have an oval, that will work just as fine. I'm going to take some homemade tomato sauce. Now, if you wanted to, you could use store-bought sauce here. That's perfectly acceptable. Just buy a good quality sauce. So I'm gonna take about a cup of this sauce and I'm gonna spread it really kind of thinly in the bottom of the pan. You don't want to use too much sauce here. Again, we've worked so hard to create a crisp coating to these chicken cutlets. We don't want to sog it up too much with excess moisture from the tomato sauce. So a really thin layer in the bottom of my baking dish. And now I'm going to take the chicken cutlets and I'm just going to position them into the pan. Maybe I'll put this big guy in the middle and these two can flank that guy. More sauce. So really just a spoonful on each cutlet, and don't overdo it. You can always serve this on the side. You really want to make sure that you're not coating the cutlets in too much sauce. So a very small amount, I would say maybe 1/4 cup per cutlet is plenty. And now for the topping, the cheese. I mean, that's to me, the most important part of this dish. And I'm gonna tell you something, and I probably won't say this about anything else, but I actually prefer using a store-bought low moisture mozzarella. Fresh mozzarella, although really delicious, is so high in moisture that if you put slices of that, or if you tore it into pieces and you kind of positioned it over the top, there's so much liquid that will be released in the oven. You're ultimately just gonna cancel all of the work you've done in creating this nice golden brown crust. So take the cheese, again, don't overdo it. There'll be plenty of cheesy gooiness, so a slight sprinkling over the top here, really where the sauce is. And make sure your oven is preheated to 375 degrees. And just to kind of embellish it even more, I'm gonna take some added parm that I have and just sprinkle this over the top. Now, the mozzarella, that low moisture mozzarella, is gonna give you the stringiness, that gooiness that you really like, but the parm, the aged cheese, is going to add incredible flavor. So this combination works well together. And this goes right into that 375 oven. It's gonna take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to get nice and gooey. The cheese is gonna melt and brown slightly. It's gonna be really delicious. So 10 to 15 minutes in that 375 oven. All right, the chicken parm is out of the oven. You can see the cheese is nice and melted and it's gooey and slightly golden brown. This is exactly what you want. Now, I can't wait to try this. It smells so delicious. Remove the chicken from the pan, and I'm gonna try this because I love chicken parm. As always, if you have any kitchen conundrums, please reach out to us using the hashtag kitchen conundrums. Whether they're baking, cooking, whatever they might be, we're here to answer your questions. So let us know what we can do to help. Enjoy, guys.